what's taking place in New York after the cold-blooded murder of an NYPD officer is illustrative of what's going on between the Democrat Party and the rest of the nation. Donald Trump is a private citizen, and yet he was president. He loves law enforcement. He loves America. That is a big difference from Obama and Biden, who clearly do not. They call it fundamental transformation. An open border demonstrates that you don't love the American citizen. For people like Biden and Obama and, yes, Clinton, this is a big stage. It's all about them. It's all about power. It's all about their party. It's not about country. It's not about the American people. It's a big play. It's a big game. Power, power, power. And they're at the highest tier of power. Two former presidents and a sitting president. Biden has spent his entire life in Washington, D.C., raising money, using government to bully. Obama has spent his entire life as a Marxist. That's correct. Domestic terrorists, Palestinian terrorists, and communists, Alinsky and others. This is what's taking place in New York. Biden doesn't give a damn about this police officer. Biden didn't give a damn about the people who have died and doesn't as a result of his policies on the border. The slavery, the brutality, the murder. He doesn't care. He pretends to care about the people in Gaza. But as Mark Penn, Democrat pollster for Clinton, points out, there are 6 times as many people in Haiti who are, as we speak, starving to death. They have no policy towards Haiti. None. They don't even talk about Haiti. There's a brilliant piece in the Tablet. It's called The President's War Against the Jews. Biden claims he's a lifelong friend of the Jewish people and he's Zionist, but these empty words are cover for decades-long antipathy. And he has this same antipathy toward the American people. When he walked into the Senate, he sided with the racists and the segregationists. He opposed integrating our public schools. That was his position. Now, having been an anti-black racist, he figures anti-white racism will get him even further. But even more, it's his anti-Semitism. It's finally come to the fore. He spent a lifetime saying one thing and doing another. And now as president, he sees his opportunity. Israel was attacked. Their back is against the wall. And there's a report today that, in fact, he is denying Israel key weapons systems that they've asked for. He's denying it. And this piece says, for some American Jews, the months since October 7 have felt like a horror movie. As they watch with increasing alarm, is our president, for whom many voted and whom many placed invaluable trust, seemed to, moment after crucial moment, throw Israel under the bus. And by the way, today his spokesman announced there's been no change in our policies on Israel, so they just keep lying. Earlier this month, the UN report from its Office of Special Representative Secretary General revealed that Israel's been saying for months, namely that Hamas committed the most vile sexual violence and torture on October 7. Such treatment likely continues to be perpetrated on hostages. Experts from the UN, an organization that is routinely hostile to the Jewish state, actually found, quote, clear and convincing information that some hostages have been subjected to various forms of conflict-related sexual violence, including rape and sexualized torture, and sexualized, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment. This is a quote. And it also has reasonable grounds to believe that such violence may be ongoing. You haven't heard Joe Biden say a word about it. And there's 5 Americans among those hostages, at least 5. In reaction, Joe Biden's State Department chose to level the charge of sexual abuse at Israel. Recently, IDF Brigadier General Amir Avivi recounted his meeting with a senior State Department official since identified as Jill Hutchings, director of the Office of Israeli and Palestinian Affairs, who proceeded to accuse Israel, quote, of systematically sexually abusing Palestinian women, unquote. The State Department's claim was based on information from Hamas pushed by Qatar's Al Jazeera, which ended up deleting the story after it proved to be fabricated. Indeed, Biden briefly expressed empathy with Israel after the heinous attack on October 7. But since then, along with his Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Biden has been working at breakneck speed to undermine, if not fully impede, Israel in its existential battle against the Iran-funded Hamas and Hezbollah terrorists. A campaign that has now extended to official blood libels about deliberate Israeli campaigns of genocide, famine, and starvation, killing babies and sexual abuse, culminating in the administration's betrayal of Israel and siding with Hamas at the Security Council last Monday. In the blink of an eye, Biden has gone from framing Hamas as pure, unadulterated evil to putting immense pressure on Israel to stand down. And the pressure is not of recent origin. More than 40 years ago, Joe Biden prompted one of the most famous phrases ever uttered by an Israeli prime minister. In a private session with the Senate Foreign Relations Committee in 1982, Biden threatened Prime Minister Menachem Begin. Well, cutting off U.S. aid if Israel did not stop its quote-unquote settlements in Judea and Samaria. And Begin replied, as we've discussed here, "Don't threaten us with cutting off your aid. It will not work. I'm not a Jew with trembling knees. I'm a proud Jew with 3,700 years of civilized history. Nobody came to our aid when we were dying in the gas chambers and ovens. Nobody came to our aid when we were striving to create our country. We paid for it. We fought for it. We died for it. And we will stand by our principles. We will defend them. And when necessary, we'll die for them, with or without your aid." Well, Biden's scorn for Israel's current Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is significantly more vocal, referring to Netanyahu as a bad effing guy and an a-hole, language that is difficult to imagine him using about any other leader of a friendly foreign state. More recently, as he swaggered his way out of the State of the Union doing his whispering, leaning-in shtick, Biden told Blinken and others, quote, "I told him, Bibi, don't repeat this, but you and I are going to have a come-to-Jesus meeting." Biden knew he was on a hot mic and admitted as much. He wanted the world to know what he thinks of Israel's prime minister, and to broadcast that he was putting the squeeze on Israel to force it to forgo its ability to defend itself. In fact, this has been Biden's posture from day one. Biden has made downgrading Israel and elevating the Palestinians while also using them as a pressure tool against Israel central to his policy in the region. Upon taking office, and despite the Taylor-Force Act, which prohibits the U.S. from sending certain tax dollars to the Palestinian Authority until it stops funding terrorism, Biden rewarded Palestinian terrorism with U.S. taxpayer monies, ultimately amounting to almost $1 billion. American First Legal Foundation, where I'm senior counsel, filed suit against Biden and Blinken on behalf of Congressman Ronnie Jackson, Stewart, and Robbie Force, parents of Taylor Force. The U.S. Army veteran, West Point graduate, murdered at the hands of a Palestinian terrorist in 2016. And Sari Singer, herself a victim of Palestinian terrorism in 2003, for violating the Taylor-Force Act. Judge Kaczmarek recently denied the government's motion to dismiss the case. We'll see where it goes. Biden knows that payments to Abbas's Palestinian Authority incentivize and reward terrorists and the terrorist operations. His actions reveal he doesn't care. And the same applies to Secretary of State Blinken. His State Department revealed in a March 2022 fact sheet that, quote, since April 2021, the United States has provided over $500 million in assistance for the Palestinians, including more than $417 million in humanitarian assistance for mainly the descendants of Palestinian refugees through UNRWA. Now, UNRWA is that UN organization that was involved on October 7th. Biden has what's known as a whole-of-government approach in his embrace of the Palestinians at the expense of Israel, mobilizing multiple executive branch agencies to work across individual silos to implement an integrated policy. And just last year, his Department of Homeland Security ceremoniously handed over to the Palestinian Authority a 2,700-year-old spoon dating back to the Assyrian Empire, describing the conveyance as, quote, historic repatriation. There were no Palestinians, and that's the point, that they did it anyway. The State Department's George Knoll, chief of the Office of Palestinian Affairs, described the spoon as an example of Palestinian cultural patrimony, and that the transfer was a historic moment between the American and Palestinian people. This attempt to manufacture an ancient Palestinian lineage in the land of Israel while denying the right of Jews to settle in their ancestral home was clear. October 7 didn't temper this obscenity. Just one day after October 7, Blinken, in concert with Turkey, called for a ceasefire by a post on Twitter, an ex-post, on the evening of October 8. Blinken deleted the post about 12 hours later, but the message was loud and clear. Stand down and remain victims. 2 days later, Biden's National Security Council spokesman called on Israel to show restraint and take only necessary and proportionate action, quote unquote, to defend itself. The inconvenient truth is there was a ceasefire on October 6th. Hamas broke it with financial and military assistance from Iran. A terrorist state is now flush with billions in sanctions relief as a direct result of Biden's disastrous policy of gifting the Islamic Republic with cash, some of which he helpfully provided barely a month after the October terror attack. And on November 14th, the administration extended a sanctions waiver allowing Iran to access $10 billion. By the way, did it again a few weeks ago. U.S. spokesmen have been repeatedly unable to deny that the monies delivered by Biden to Iran weren't used in funding the October 7 attack because, of course, they were. Now, as if funding Hamas through Iran weren't bad enough, Biden made it a top priority to help maintain open supply lines to Gaza, while also looking the other way as Hamas intercepts and hijacks 60% or more of the humanitarian aid from the many thousands of aid trucks coming into the Strip since the start of the war. Hamas either keeps the aid for its terrorists or sells it to non-combatants at exorbitant prices. This is being reported almost daily from multiple sources, with social media videos corroborating the reports of Hamas's theft of the cargo. And instead of condemning Hamas for the aid crisis, Biden blames Israel for what his Secretary of State has claimed is an acute food insecurity crisis in Gaza, supposedly affecting 100% of the population. Biden also ignores that Hamas steals the fuel aid to fire rockets and operate its tunnels. When thousands of Gazans swarmed some 30 food delivery trucks in Gaza and a deadly stampede ensued, IDF aerial footage corroborated that the IDF's account was right, showing that Hamas was directly to blame, and they fired, Hamas did, on the Palestinians. And yet both the media and the Biden administration have continued to blame Israel. Now, the piece goes on in significant detail with exquisite substance. And the title of the piece is a very gutsy title and a very accurate title. The President's War Against the Jews. And it goes on about anti-Semitism in America and how Biden's doing next to nothing and he won't even speak out against it, and he never did at the State of the Union. Biden's taken a side. He's siding with the Islamists. That's where his party is. That's where he is. He's siding with academia. He's siding with Hollywood. He's siding with the media. He's siding with Obama. He's firmly on the side of the Islamists. The tabletmag.com, published this piece. It was written by a beautiful and brilliant woman, my wife, Julie.